You want me to stop?
Just stop it because look at this. Gary's ready now.
Okay. All right. And it's doing it. It's I'm getting feedback on the audio. So we should all stop.
All set? All set? Okay. Meeting of the trustees of trust funds in Lincoln will now come before us, and we're at 9:05. Colleagues are here, thank you for that. Today we are going to be having a work session, so the bank is not here. I had requests on a couple of things to discuss, which we'll discuss later. I also had a request again to list our meetings, so I'm going to do that first, and then we'll get to following statement. I don't know, Paul had a couple of things he had to get brought up, and he's going to talk about.
Yeah, I got
from your email there. So
yeah, I have a couple of things.
we'll be discussing that well.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a list of the meetings for 2025 that was requested. January 16th, we met with the bank. March 13th, we had an election and a work section as of the town meeting. April 17th was with the bank. May 8th was a work session. July 17th was the bank. September 18th was another work session. October 16th was with the bank, and today, November 20th, is a work session. And our meeting with the bank is January 15th, 2026. So that runs that down. And it's a lot of meetings, but a lot's being done. And I think this meeting's been very, very helpful, especially the work sessions, where we're getting a lot of stuff done. Something that I've wanted to for a long time, and I'm glad that we are doing these extra meetings because we're getting a lot done. Okay, why don't we let's do the minutes, and then we'll have time for all this other stuff that we'll be talking about. Okay, I had a chance to go over them. Paul, you had a chance to go over the minutes?
I just read them. They look great.
Right. As usual, the minutes are awesome. Gary's doing an excellent job with that. So I think we'll just call for a motion to approve.
I'll make that second that motion.
Okay. All those in favor, so I'm saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained. Last, I will sign this now. Give it to Jane when we leave. Okay, that approves the minutes. What I've been asked to talk to the committee about can wait. Not that it's not important, but I think the most important thing is for us to get right into this policy statement. We spent a lot of time on this, a lot of meetings, a lot of discussion, and the ideas were all grouped together. And once again, Gary did a great job coming up with all the ideas into a policy statement. My only concern about this is that we get this done today, just discuss it, talk about it, but I don't want this to run into 2026. I think we spent enough time on this, and we've got a lot of good ideas from the board. We listen to what the bank says, but it is our job to approve this and have our own policy statement. As I said, Gary did a great job combining all our ideas into this thing, and I think we should just discuss it at this point. And then I'd like to request that we vote on it. So whoever wants to start, Gary, if you want to start, or Paul, then I'll wrap up.
I can start.
Okay.
All I really did was sort of basically repeat the first page or so of the old policy, and we get pretty much the same as the one that had been in the process of being drafted. Changing a few words here and there, right? And I wanted to make sure that we adopted the investor rule, which the bank representatives felt was important, so I include that at the top of the second page.
Right.
I included the reference to no high risk investments that we had in the past, and the prioritization of financial returns per the executive order of Governor Sununu. We modified so that we shall meet quarterly and more frequently if warranted to improve that language.
But that was a big issue.
And then beyond that, getting more substantive, I simply broke out the investment guidance in two separate categories for the capital reserve funds and trust funds, which had always been the case anyway, and simply made three sections of each. First, for the capital reserve funds, the objective rather is different than the trust funds, because of course the capital reserve funds are town funds which may be needed by the town at any time on short notice. So we have a shorter investment horizon for the capital reserve funds. That had already been the case anyway. That was the case in the previous policy. It also was the case in the bank's draft policy. And then eligible investments was the second category we discuss. Under eligible investments, we have the forms of investment that are authorized by the statute. And we had previously talked about with the capital reserve funds, trying to have a guideline of approximately $1 million in cash equivalents, or yes, right, which is about 50% of the cash funds. So that isn't a mandatory amount, as the bank pointed out, because if we have a quick request for a fire engine or something such as we had recently, right, that could bring it below, but that would be a goal. And other than that, the investments are the same types of investments that you had already been working on in the draft investment policy that was in the works. And then finally, the third category for that capital reserve fund investment guidance section is the asset allocation. And this is the exact asset allocation that the bank had proposed. And I believe it is similar to what we had been doing anyway, since my fellow trustees before I became a trustee authorized the investment in equities. So that had changed from the old policy, I think. Right. But basically, it's a 15% target for cash and equivalents, 70% target for fixed income, and 15% target for equities. Then just moving on to the trust funds, we have the same three categories discussed, that is objective, eligible investments, and asset allocation. The objective for the trust funds is the longer investment time horizon, which we already had been doing, which was already well known, because these funds are, a lot of them are perpetual, such as the cemetery funds. The eligible investments, again, are those that are authorized by statute. And here we have, I guess one would say, a more growth-oriented approach. And this had already been the case in terms of the investments and in terms of the policy. It was in the previous draft policy. So we just kind of reiterated that. And for the asset allocation, this proposes using the asset allocation that the bank had proposed, which is, a much smaller cash and equivalent portion, 3% target, and a 42% target of fixed income, a larger 55% equity target, looking more to the long term of these investments. And then finally, as had been recommended and as the trustees seem to believe was a good idea, as recommended by the bank, we put in the amended date and, more specifically explain what this amendment does, which is updating the policy from 2019 authorizing equity investments, adopting the approved investor rule, and setting forth additional objectives to asset allocations. So I think I tried to incorporate the main recommendations made by the bank, the policies that really had already been in effect here, but sometimes not stated in writing, and as well as those that were stated in writing in the previous draft. There certainly maybe things that you have noticed that might not quite be right or that might be improved. So I'm welcome to any amendments if you think there should be any, because I'm certainly not an expert in these things. But that was my pass. Well,
Yeah. My feeling that I've gone over this a lot, and I think it's a grand slam to use baseball term. I don't see anything that is the important things that Trustee Gary just brought up. Very important things that were changed, added, some things from the bank, some things from the board, and some that was already in the policy. The thing I was concerned about, and it's fine now, but it wasn't with the other policy. It's trustees shall meet quarterly and more frequently if warranted to review the investment report that summarizes portfolio costs and market value and performance of investments. We don't want board to go back to one meeting a year or two meetings. That is not. It's not feasible anymore, and I don't think it's financially a good idea either. And now that we've got it in here, that to do this, I think this is a very good thing. And also, too, that we have the trustees shall review and confirm or amend this investment policy annually as appropriate. That's an important thing too. I mean, as boards look at it, okay, it's fine. So it wasn't, changed. That was for the board. Just saying that for the record. I was chair at that time, vice chair at one other time. And I'm glad it's in here now. It's stated, it's in model. There's no question that a new board, somebody down the 10, 15 years from now can't say, well, we can meet once a year, it's okay. No, you don't want to go back to those days. Especially with the money that's $229 back to the days. But I think this is a solid document. Gary did a fantastic job with 7-4 Pete. And I think it's ready for Paul now to make his ideas. So,
yeah, I mean, first off, thanks, Gary, for all this really, really great work. This investment policy looks so much better than the other one.
Yep.
Incorporated a lot of the asset allocations, eligible investments that the bank was looking for. I just had a couple questions for all of us. First off, when I was looking through this, I noticed that, and I think we brought this up before, but and I don't have a strong opinion on this, but I did notice that the Moody's or Standard & Poor's rating for fixed assets or capital reserve funds was A rating, and the other one was B rating. Was this something that was suggested by the bank, basically?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
I looked this over last night because I had done this some time ago, and I looked at that, and I had the same question to myself.
Right.
And I said, why did I put that in there? I went back and I looked at the bank's policy last night, and I said, okay, that's where I get that.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, I don't really, it's like, all right, it's all great to me. So I'm fine with that as long as the bank's fine with that, and I understand the different types of investments, and I also understand Moody's, so they're still great ratings. So I'm I guess get a little better return. And then the second thing is, thank you for including the executive order from Governor Sununu which emphasizes maximizing returns and has language on the ESGs that we talked about ad nauseum. Thanks for including that. And then, and this is certainly a little discussion. I just have two things. Nothing else. I don't have any other problem with or not problem. I don't have any other issues with the way the investment policy is written. But I did have a couple general questions whether it should be included in the policy. Was most recently the bank brought up investing in some funds that originate with the bank themselves, which is obviously a direct conflict of interest. I don't think anyone can argue that. People that we're asking advice from to invest in their own funds that it is a conflict of interest. I'm not saying that it's necessarily unusual in the industry, but it is a conflict of interest. It's a slippery slope. It's a very slippery slope. Yeah. Number one, it's a slippery slope. Yeah. Number two, the bank disappointedly didn't present any track record for these funds whatsoever. Usually when any investor is looking at an investment, they'll get some analysis, a report or something, like an annual statement. What's it being invested in? What's its track record over the last 5 years? Compare it to a benchmark like the S&P 500, which is specifically what we're really talking about, is something like the S&P 500. We're talking about a mutual fund. Exactly. The bank didn't present any of that, which I have a lot of heartburn with, honestly. And I would say anytime they present a new investment, they should present it properly. I mean, it shouldn't be a verbal blur of verbiage, which they had last time, and gloss over the entire thing, which is exactly what they did. And I have a real heartburn with that, and I think anything that investments that are made should be presented in a written form as opposed to a verbal form. And even a mathematical format with analysis. What they did was not cool, in my opinion. It just wasn't cool. They just presented it, and you'll notice that Frank was very quiet during the presentation. Lizzie is, and you'll notice that Frank is very quiet when there's something controversial. So he'll let his advisor go on it, and then he'll say, and he won't weigh in. But all right. So and it's almost like my red flags start going up when I see that dynamic going on. Right. So he'll sit back and let Donna present it, and then Donna will present it, and he won't weigh in. But and it's a tactic, clearly, And it took me a while to think about it when, as we walked away, because you don't get a chance to think about things and new investment, on the fly. So now I have to think on the fly, and if I don't catch it, we could be investing in something that has gross fees on it. The fee structure of these new things never even went over, Yep. And Donna even mentioned, I don't care if the fee structure is 3%. Those weren't my words, those were her words. 3% is outrageous. It's outrageous. Usually the VOO, which is the investment that we're using right now, the percent is a fraction. I think it's 0.15 or something like that of a percent. And she's saying 3%. This is almost 300% higher than any other mutual fund. Now, she wasn't saying that's how much it was. She said, I don't care if it's 3% as long as I get a return. And I questioned her. I said, so you're saying the current VOO is almost 16% return. I think it's like 15.5 right now. So and then I said, is it going to be 17? Are you saying this investment's going to be 17%? Which is outrageous. There's no investment fund that can return 17%. 80% of all mutual funds don't perform like the S&P 500, don't perform as well as the VOO. And she's stating that the Bank of New Hampshire is going to have a better return than 80% of the funds out there, and she doesn't care that it's a 3% class. You know, it's just,
Remember the state.
it's really ungood what was presented here. And very like under the radar type presentation. So, you know, well, that's, you know, especially this fee structure, which they just raised the fee structures about 6 months ago, this report here is.
Yeah. Oh, that's
And
important.
so we were getting a good fee structure, and I think that was a lot of time banks will give you introductory offer, you know, on fee
Yep.
structures.
Yeah.
And and I don't know exactly, but it seems like when they were trying to get our business, we were offered some favorable terms. And then about 6 months ago, they came in and said, hey, you know, we've been giving you guys a really good fee structure, and I don't know if they basically doubled it or what, but that's another problem I have. Not a problem, but you know, when we talk about this investment policy, it says annually we'll go over performance, strategy, research capabilities, organizational business matters and stuff. But I mean, it would be nice to have something in there on fee structure. Annually go over the fee structure. Because at least as long as I've been on the board, which I think is 2 years now, the fee structure again was gone over verbally, you know, and they didn't break it down. And when you're on this side of the table and you have quote unquote experts on the other side of the table, sometimes it's nice to have something explained to you in detail, especially on fee structure.
You want it right.
I wanted it in writing, and new investments I want in writing, you know. So I mean that's my 2 cents.
Well, I can see, you know, this is what you do good. You're the chief financial officer. You're bringing up important points here. Absolutely. Which is just for the record. Those are all important things you just said. Gary, what do you think?
Yeah, I think those are good points also. About the mutual fund that that Donna talked about, it was a pretty brief discussion, and I don't remember some of the details of what she said. I actually was thinking about going back and trying to see if I could find a video of the meeting and try to find that section, but that would take, I didn't do that for whatever reason. So I definitely appreciate the concern. I also though have in the back of my mind that as professionals in this industry, wealth managers, fiduciaries, they understand their role, they understand our role. I don't know if they would propose something that is a direct conflict of interest, because they shouldn't be doing that. So there may be something that we don't know about what they're proposing because of the little information they gave us about it. So my as we got to the tail end of your discussion there, which is very good, I almost was thinking to myself, maybe what we should do is send them an email or write to them briefly and ask them if they can give us the details of what it is she was referring to in terms of the bank's mutual fund, what the fees on that would be, and also while we're at it, we could say, could you please remind us of what the fee structure, the overall fee structure that you're using is. Because I don't, without more information, I don't feel comfortable saying we should not be letting them invest with us because it's a conflict of interest, because I don't know enough about what they're proposing to say that. But I think they are very, very valid concerns. I feel I need more information about what that fund is, what, if there is any track record, performance on it, or something new. I think she was talking about being something new.
Yeah,
She was talking that it was something that the bank has never done before.
exactly.
And she was saying like, we as the bank laugh at the other mutual funds her words, not mine. We laugh and ridicule the other mutual funds because they're picking bad. They said this was what's so funny. You remind me. So the VOO, okay, is the S&P 500, okay, but it doesn't invest in every stock in the S&P 500. It invests in, like, I'm ballparking here, but about 20 funds. So you have NVIDIA's and Microsoft. So it's a statistical sample size of the S&P 500. It's not the actual S&P 500. And so what's so interesting is, to me, 2 meetings ago, if not 3 meetings ago, they presented to us, Donna and Frank, they presented us to us, they said, you should be invested in there's another funds, there are other funds that invest in the entire S&P 500, or even a larger statistical sample size than the typical 15 to 20. And that's what they suggested, because it's a broader index. And my argument was 2 months ago that that's a more volatile index, and it gets you less return, which it clearly does when I did my own research. So it's really funny to me now that 2 months ago they were trying to say get away from the VOO, which has a very low fee structure, and they said let's go to a all-inclusive fund. And now they're saying now the all-inclusive fund, which had more in it, and now they're saying go to yet another fund that's provided by the bank that excludes the broad index fund. So they're saying almost the opposite of what they said 2 months ago, last month, And I mean, if it's written down on paper, at least we can reference it. And so when we have a verbal argument like that, and not a piece of paper, it's like, listen, this is what it was 2 months ago. And now you're saying what you said 2 months ago is invalid under this new fund. And both of these funds that they suggest have a higher fee structure than a VOO, which is one of the lowest in the industry, if not the lowest in the industry. And when they propose a new mutual fund, and I agree with what Gary said, we need more research, we need more data. Absolutely. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And maybe I could be wrong on something. I typically am, but it was my first cut at it. You know what I mean? So the conflict of interest, okay, is clear. They're going to collect more fees for their own funds, and they aren't giving us like 3 options. You know what I mean? So they're saying this is the one, but always an industry standard. It's also industry standard that when you go to Vanguard or Fidelity, they offer their own funds too. Which is a conflict of interest, 100%. This is very, 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 very typical in banks and investment firms. Of course, they want you to invest in their funds because they get double accounting. They get double fees. So they're already collecting a fee from us already. And now when we invest in their mutual fund, they collect an additional fee. So if they, and we have, again, it wasn't clear whether we were talking about investing in the capital reserve and the trust fund, one or the other. But say they're, anyways, they have potentially a lot of money they can be collecting. Maybe an additional $30,000+ if they get 1, 2, or 3%. It would go to 100,000. I don't think they're going to say 3%, but that's outrageous. But even if they a typical, if you go to any investment firm right now, personally for your money, they'll ask for 1%. All right, 1% of your entire portfolio, which is outrageous. That's an outrageous amount, but it's industry standard. It's absolutely industry standard. So you really got to watch these fees. These guys are not. I'm not saying these people at the other side of the room specifically, but investment people need to be watched like a hawk, because all they care about is getting money at the end and getting paid. And they came out with a lot of these financial certifications and stuff because people were getting ripped off so blatantly, always investing in their own, you know, investment vehicles. And here we have the same thing, the same tactic that was basically, you know, it took an act of Congress, I think, you know, really to get these guys on the right side of the fence and stop ripping off people. But there's a lot of legacy that's in there, you know? So, I mean, this is, you know, we gotta watch out for this, you know?
Would you be willing to, could you send them an email?
I can't. And the thing is,
Ask these little questions.
yeah, I will, I can, and you know, and I know Donna offered us to have a one-on-one conversation, but I don't like that either. Not when it comes to this sort of stuff. We should all be presented, you know, information on investment. You know, I don't like these, you know, we'll talk on the phone and get some clarification
I
or something.
agree.
I mean, we all need to be part of this.
One has to be absolutely,
Three heads are better than one.
absolutely. Stuff. Any conversations I've had with, they call me, I always phone the board or suggest that we, you know, next meeting, let's bring this up again. Over the years, we've done that. Because private conversations, I agree that it's not right for the board.
No, I absolutely agree that these are very good concerns, and that we should take answers. You know, your point about the double fees is a good one, well taken. And it did take an act of Congress to get some of those reined back in.
Right.
And in terms of fiduciary responsibilities. I don't know the name yet, but it did pass, and no, that would be great to get that additional information on exactly what it is they were proposing, what the fees are, and just get a new update, at least for my benefit, because I really don't know what the current fee structure is.
I would assume that we're gonna get a fee increase in January. If I'm wrong with that.
Well, I don't think we should because
I just want.
they just raised the fee about 6 months ago. They just raised the fee.
So one of the new year, they're gonna.
That's a percentage. They should be raising the fee. You know,
I'm just wondering.
but yeah, I mean, I can ask for the fee structure as well.
But I would think something that you said was very. Presentations should not be just a quick verbal. You know, well, you gotta go now. No, it should be, you know, here's this, is a reference of somebody that's bought this
Right,
investment, whatever it is. Here's the track record, as you call for.
right.
But it's very important, you know, and just a quick, no, we need to see it in writing. I think that's very.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I mean, especially if these are new funds. I mean, we shouldn't be investing in new funds. You know, if they, I mean, they should. I understand their point of view from the, you know, they want to get this thing off the ground, but we should not be the
Experimental.
Yeah, I mean, that's not from trustee or trust fund.
It's also good that you said this, you know, it's. Like I said, it's slippery slope, but
and
I'm not comfortable with if it's. I don't want say anything or point to anything or go anywhere. No, absolutely not.
And in general, you know, I just want to say one last thing on this thing, and it's really just sort of a bookmark for a later discussion. But I looked at like my mom's finances,
Right.
and I looked at my sister's finances, and I cleaned them up a little bit. But I did notice a very, very blatant tactic. Because I didn't know anything about finance at all. But a very, very blatant tactic was to put in 20, 30 different investment funds. And so even though like when I personally invest a lot of my money, it goes into an index fund. So it goes into one index fund, like the VOO. or an S&P 500 with low fees, or maybe a NASDAQ with low fees. But a tactic used by financial, fiduciary, responsible things is they'll invest you in 20, 30, 40 different funds so they can collect fees on each and every fund. And so I think that's a tactic we got to look out for, because you don't have to invest in 20, 30, 40 funds. You can invest in one fund and get the same return and not have fees. And when I look at, for example, the bond fund, which has, I don't know, like 20 different bonds in it, I question it. I didn't look into it. I haven't done my homework. I know more about stocks. If you invest in 20 different stock funds, I know that's wrong, and someone's taking advantage of it. Okay. I understand the bonds, and I understand the ladder, and I understand things coming clearer. I also know that there's, and I haven't looked into it, I haven't done my homework on it yet, but I also know that there's, like, you can just invest in a bond fund, in one fund. So, you know, and I'm stepping out on very thin ice right now, but my question is, like, do we need 15, 20 different bonds? Or can we just have one bond fund and get the same return and less fees? I don't know. But I've seen it on the other side of the fence, done on stocks 100%. So I'm not sure that applies with the bonds, but it's something to think about. You know, and maybe a question should be asked maybe after a little bit of thinking. And you know, it's
No reason why.
I'm glad we have a good relationship with the city of Jefferson over there. So yeah. You know, it'd always be nice to, if we ever have the opportunity to compare notes with another town, that would always be interesting to see what they're doing.
Maybe that's something we could do in 26, have a meeting.
Yeah, maybe
Come in from there.
Right. I mean, you know,
what do you think, Gary, about that? That would be a bad idea. Have a representative from another town that's in the Bank of New Hampshire. We got 13 towns that have a representative come in.
You mean one of the trustees?
Get one of their trustees.
Sure.
I don't think it's bad. It's up to 26 to think about.
Yeah, for like a work session.
yeah, it works out. Because I mean, a lot of towns,
That's a bad idea.
because I know that we're collecting a lot of money, and I really question whether we need this much money. But it's for the selectmen and people to decide. But I wouldn't collect any more money than we have. And we have $8 million. Out loud. That's the entire budget. You know, I don't think we should be collecting any more money. Now you're taking money away from the taxpayers, and you know, I understand you need some monies, but inflation is eating up the money as well. So I think we're just, I forget the last thing, but we were just barely beating it. We weren't beating inflation, money wise.
Not money.
I mean, I understand that you need money in the budget for long-term things, absolutely, but you know, $8 million seems like a lot. And I know some towns don't carry; they carry a fraction of what we carry on books.
That is though something for the town meeting.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. It's not our decision, but it's like it's something just again a bookmark to think about. That's all.
Well, when I came out, we had back in 2015, and 2 million.
In 2015,
And we were getting the famous
So it's 4 times
$229 a year, which I thought was insane. And thank goodness we got it cleaned up. But it's interesting. Frank has said over the years that there's some, like trustee meetings, for example. There's some trustees that meet once every 5 or 6 months because they've got very little invested.
right.
You know, if you have a million, maybe less. There's some trustees that meet every week.
Really?
They've got, they have so much money in.
Oh,
That's
like a
it.
big town.
Big town, yeah.
Yeah.
So they meet
Big city.
weekly.
Yeah, I can get that for a big city. Sure.
Which I think is a good idea. If you're a big city, you have a lot of money.
Right.
Certainly don't want to go back to this 1 year, 2 year meetings nonsense. So I understand that, but I think, you know, that's not a bad idea to to think about, 26 to have somebody, if they would come up and meet with us, and I'm keeping my eye on CDs and other banks too. So something that I used to do. And if I see something that looks good, I will invite that bank, I'll let you guys know and have a talk about it. We could always do that, because we did very well with primary bank CD investment.
So do you think if we would it be good to meet with another town that uses the Bank of New Hampshire, or would it be good to meet with another town trustee that uses somebody other than?
I mean, I would say I would meet with another town outside the Bank of New Hampshire that actually has funds that they save. So it has to be big enough that they actually have funds that they invest in. Because a lot of these towns, I think I looked at it one time, like I think maybe it was Thornton or something like that. I can't remember. And it's like, well, they had like no money that they were saving, so they weren't in the same boat that we're.
It's got to be.
So it has to be at least
level.
big enough, and so I mean, maybe just they publish their meetings too, so we just attend the meeting and say, hey, I'm from here. What do you guys do? I know, like for Legion, I did that, and when we had a meeting, and one of the guys like, money market, CDs, and all this stuff, and I was like, well, we don't do any of that stuff, over our Legion. Like, we just like, piggyback on you and what you're doing,
Yeah.
I think that'd be a good idea. I agree on trying to meet with a representative from a town, both that uses somebody other than the Bank of New Hampshire, because otherwise we'll hear the same kind of investment philosophy that we're already using. And maybe we'll get new different ideas from somebody who has a different wealth advisor, maybe better, maybe worse, or it could very well be worse.
I mean, in general, I'm okay with these guys, from what we were 4 years ago, when we had zero coming.
And also, of course, that's the town that has, some significant amount of money to invest. And, I don't know. I did, by the way, when we were looking at these investment policies, I tried to go on a bunch of town websites and see if there were any trustees' investment policies posted on the website. And there were really, I think I found one.
Yeah,
it wasn't something that got put out there, and there weren't even many that had minutes, So it's kind of hard to find it on town websites, but so it would take some further inquiry to find a good town.
As long as we find something that's comparable level.
Right.
Yeah, we don't want something that's meeting every week, but we don't want something that's meeting once a year either.
And it's funny because when you look at some of these things in investment, the towns that invest, because we weren't investing it, 4 years ago, so we're losing at least $300,000 a year ballpark. And then, when you look at a similar budget with the school, which is also about 8 million, I think it's 10 million, might actually be larger than the town budget now.
Yeah.
I asked them about it in general terms, and there were actual state sponsored investment vehicles that the school did. Because I was thinking, oh, maybe they do the same thing over at the school, and I didn't drill down into it, but there were at least 2 investment vehicles. I should track it. There's at least 1 investment vehicle that the town that the school uses, and then there was another investment vehicle, I think was for sewers or something, that the town doesn't use with us as a trust fund, but the state invests in. I don't know when I where I got that information from. It was from Becky, it was someone else. So for me coming into this, I think it's only my second year, you start looking at these different state investment vehicles, and you're just like, it's very curious that the town funds didn't have anything, but the sewers had something. The sewers had something, but it was different than what the school had, you know? And then you look at all these different towns and you're just like, some of them don't even do any of this. And then, and then some of them don't even invest in the money, and so you have all these cats and dogs out there. And it's very curious that it's a statewide, if you're talking a whole heck of a lot of money when you're talking, just this town has, what, I don't know, it's $18 million, I mean, if you multiply that times the 250 towns, that's quite a significant, chunk of change. So, so I don't know where I was going with that. Just that when we go visit another town or talk to these institutions on sewer or even the school funds. I mean, these might be opportunities. I mean, I don't know if there's anything that says, oh, you can't invest your money in the school fund or the sewer fund, and you're like, well, why? It's just an account. They're just, I mean, so I mean, I think there's a lot of room for understanding, at least on my part, on these things. Maybe maybe the state has control and knows what the heck they're doing. I hope they do. But there seems like at least from my understanding, it seems like there's a lot of room for understanding.
Or if you could send that email.
I will send that email to Donna
as the chief financial officer.
Yeah, sure.
And I think that's another thing about the board. These positions are not token positions. We do what we do. In the position we're in, we've added a lot more of that over the years. I've been on this board since 2015. The changes have been absolutely astronomical, not only in the money making, but operations, run. They've got people really gung ho with what they're doing, and that's important. So that's and we've laid the groundwork now for people, future generations, when they're sitting here, with this kind of policy we've got and the investments that we're making, and checking out other investments as well. I think that's the way to go. That's why this board has really been, I call having a renaissance. They're the most going, so this is really the way it should be. For the town. But I am very pleased with this policy statement. It's awesome. What do we think about voting on this? Or?
Yeah, I would say I'm perfectly happy with it. I would just add when we talk about the at least annually statement, which is in the last paragraph of the first page, to add a review of fee structures.
Yeah, that's
You want to do
the sentence that starts with the investor, the advisor shall be reviewed at least annually regarding performance.
You want to make that quarterly review?
The fee structure.
Fees or what?
Or whatever.
We just add the words fee structure.
I would just add fee structure. I mean, we can get way down in the weeds. I don't think we have to about like anytime you get a new member, you should go over fee structure. Every time you
A new member is just hold everything like a history of the board, and that's the best.
Yeah. It does take you. At least it took me a good 2 solid years before I started to clue in a little bit, and I still didn't go to the the state.
You flew in a long time ago too.
Well, I mean, that's
done a fantastic job on
positional things, but it's.
We'd have to be an accountant. That's what was called accountant. I said, well, we wanted to change it. Jean came in, she became chief financial officer. Fantastic job. And then you came in, done a fantastic job.
Well, hopefully it'll make it easier. I mean, we did get the MS9s and MS10s done by the bank, which was huge.
Well, that was a big a very serious thing being done.
Very serious.
Because, you know, it was being done once a year, which was a mistake. Frank was absolutely right about that. Every month it should be done, and it is done every month.
Now,
Yeah, I mean, this is how you get it. At the end of the year, you could have like 6 mistakes and 6 different months. You're trying to do that, and you gotta get a deadline for the MS9, MS10. You can't be going through a year's paper.
no,
Trying to find
it was, and anyways, so it's nice that we took that off our plate. Another thing that we've done recently was to allow the town to make deposits, which is huge because I used to come in
Yeah.
every, I don't know, every other week at least, maybe on average a little more than that. But I just reinforced that with the town finance with Becky and with the town clerk, and I just, because they did have another check for me, and I said, no, you guys are depositing these now. And they said, yeah, okay, we thought just when we have cash.
Oh,
And I said, no, every, get deposit everything.
well, they used to call Gina and they'd have a bag of change.
Yeah.
She was in that car and take it to the bank. They used to have a great.
So I mean, yeah, so I think the paperwork wise for this position, as far as getting the MS9s, MS10s, and now the deposits, vastly reduces the amount of legwork. So hopefully for the next person, and now with the new policy statement, you know, hopefully that will, you know, so I mean, we progressed, made no money, to making money, reduce the paperwork. So, you know, hopefully everyone will contribute a little bit. Get it more stream.
Like I said, the money is this. I mean, when I first came in, so I thought it was a accounting mistake. I'm looking for the column, and I said, and the person said, "Oh no, this is what they give us, and it's every year." So that you said it right there. That's every year.
Right, it's $300,000. I mean, I don't want to go into it too much, but it's funny when you look at like Doge or some for federal government.
Yep.
People use different words, but it's corruption. If the town loses $300,000 plus a year, I mean, anyone else that's on the outside would say, no, that's corruption, that's fraud. But we use different words, not invested, not this, not that. You know, so it's, you know, the wordsmithing is different, but the result is the same.
Okay, so what do we do with what do we do with this?
Because, I would make a motion to adopt the draft investment policy with one amendment. Which is to include the words fee structure after the words business matters. In the sentence that discusses what will be reviewed with the advisor at least annually. So it would say the advisor shall be reviewed at least annually regarding performance, personnel strategy, research capabilities, organizational and business matters, fee structure, and other qualitative factors that may impact its ability to achieve its desired investment results. So I would move that you adopted with that.
Yeah, I second that, that's change, and thank you.
Motion second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained, pass. Now, Gary, could you make that change?
Yeah.
And can you email this to Frank?
Yes, do you think we can go ahead and sign the last page of this, and I'll just make the amendment on the first page?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We should sign it. And sign you, and we should sign our position as well. That's what we're doing. So it establishes that for future people, so there's no question about it. I'll just hold on. I was going to sign this, give this to the town, but now that you made that motion, you can't give this. I'll keep this as record for me. The town can get a copy. We won't need that for the goal. Just call that will be for February, March.
when we see these guys, you know?
No, the auditors.
Oh, auditors, oh, I'm
Says
sorry.
I want.
Yeah, they're gonna wanna see the policy statement, but again, they're gonna wanna see the MS nine, MS ten.
Yeah, you put secretary. Great, yeah, absolutely. So we're signing the document now. Again, thanks to Gary that moved all this together.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. Especially, I'm glad to get this thing signed so we can like move on from it as well. I mean,
Well, we've
we've
been
been,
on.
I could think of like half a dozen things more we can put in there, especially since discussion this morning, but I think it's appropriate at this point.
All right, chief financial officer. Absolutely. Yeah, but I think we have spent a lot of time on this. More time than any years my terms on. You know, said, well, it's okay, so it's fine. Well, think, Gary, send that to right? Yeah. That's it. I just think it was a mistake that we don't, wait till January, we'll be talking about it.
You can go on forever.
We'll be talking about this during, after a town meeting, when it will not be like for the board.
Yeah.
And I don't wanna do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You can change it anytime you want to.
yeah, we've discussed, it, like,
This is being approved, and we don't have to go over any of the
no,
the bank's reiteration of it again.
no,
We do not do it all.
no, I think we heard what they had to
That's
say.
it, right.
And as Gary said, he incorporated that into, he grouped everything together. And what Governor Saloon said too. And you know, I think we've,
Yeah, we need that, we did it, so.
yeah, I think we've covered it. Couple of things that people have asked me about that. Because we're a financial board and I'm told I would ask, I would ask what they thought. And one is recently the White House has come up with two ideas. One's a 50-year mortgage, and one is a mobile mortgage. And somebody asked me in the grocery store the other day about both of them. I said, could you bring that up at your meeting? Yes, absolutely. It's a financial thing. We can talk about it. We have no effect on it. So we can discuss it. We discussed our rates before with Federal Reserve, so we certainly can. The only thing I said about a 50-year mortgage just has its good points and has its bad points. Good points is it's lower rate, but it's quite a long time. But the argument is if you're 20 years old, you can't afford a mortgage now. With a 50 work for you, well, in some cases it might. But it is a long time to sign up for. As far as a mobile mortgage they were talking about, which I really would support. Once you get a mortgage and whatever the rate is, if you go to get, once you sell that house and you go to get another house, the mortgage rate is locked in. So you don't have to go to the bank, go through all this rigmarole. Those people have mortgages, whether it's business or personal or whatever, you know the rigmarole with it. That's eliminated and your rate stays the same. So I certainly would support the mobile, a transferable mortgage, they call them a mobile mortgage. I certainly would support it. And a 50-year depends on your situation, the age, and what exactly you're into. Paul, what do you think about those two?
Well, I think it came up because of affordability and people not getting into housing.
Right.
So I get that. I mean, I think it's funny. They make you qualify for a mortgage, but they don't make you, they'll let you take out hundreds of thousands of dollars for your college tuition. And you don't have to qualify for that at all. Just like, oh, sign your life away for college tuition. And, you know, and I think that is more of a cause for the housing crisis for a lot of people than than is given credit to, because, you know, college is a scam. I have 2 master's degrees, you know, and I understand, you know, college. When I went to college, you know, I paid for it myself, or I went in the military and they helped pay for it. But it wasn't something that most people could pay and were pretty quick after. You know, you might have gone a little bit, but not much. And the way it is now, it's an outrageous thing. And I've also been on recent travels, and other countries do the same thing, and put their people in debt and make them get degrees for simple service jobs. They, you know, and you know, for working behind a desk over at a hotel, they make you do a 4-year degree or something, which is outrageous. That's crazy. You know, and so colleges needs to get back on the rails, and they're basically robbing kids' futures. And this goes in a lot of how they, of course, they can't afford a mortgage. They're paying off their tuition, and you know, I know that other countries like I think Switzerland and maybe another European country went to 50-year mortgages. I do like the transferable of mortgages, you know, mobile mortgages. I mean, that makes sense. So you can take over a 10-year mortgage, since I think the first 5 years you're paying all interest, not even paying any principal. Right. So if you get past that point, I'm sure banks don't like that at all.
No, banks are against that.
So I mean, so you know, you're moving in the right direction there. I'm not sure about the 50-year.
Yeah,
I'd rather see them work on college tuition and break the back of colleges, honestly. I mean, you know, obviously as an engineer, all educated men here, you know, I mean, we're all huge advocates of education. I mean, that's not an issue. That's not an issue. It's just like, why are you bankrupting children for what they're getting? You're making them pay, you know, $50,000-$60,000 for a year for reading 12 books, 15 books. I mean, it's crazy.
then they've got terrible debt, and they've got a degree in liberal arts. So what are you going to do?
It makes them put off their entire, you know, oh, I can't have kids, I can't have a family, right, because I got to pay off my debts. Right? It puts them in anxiety from day one. That's ungood.
You know? But the mobile, you take it with you.
You take it with you, and you know, and I've had a number of kids in my life, and you know, if I could have taken those with me or sold them, it would have made my profit on my housing so much more attractive. You know, I just paid, you know, 7-10 years on a mortgage, and then I could, instead of, you know, getting, you know, 50% on for my costs, I could have included that as a payback to me. You know, I could probably got, you know, another 20, 30, 40, $50,000 out of the price of my property by being able to transfer the mortgage with it. You know, so yeah.
Jerry, what do you think?
Well,
issues. No, we can't affect them, but I was asked about them. So.
Since you brought up the 50-year mortgage, I think it's a terrible idea.
Okay.
I can't even believe you put it out there. To be honest with you, I think somebody walked into the Oval Office, gave him a poster, put a picture of FDR with a 30-year mortgage, and a picture of Trump with a 50-year mortgage, and he said, "Okay, let's make me another FDR," and put it out there without thinking about it at all. It's ridiculous. There's no reason a 50-year mortgage would be a good idea for anybody. Right? So you've got, first of all, people generally can't buy a house these days until they're maybe like 30 years old. So if you get a 50-year mortgage at 30, you're going to be 80 by the time it's ever paid off. The interest rate might go down. I'm sorry, the monthly payment might go $2,500 a month to $2,200 a month. So it's slightly more affordable. But over the term of the mortgage, you're probably going to be paying off something like $850,000 worth of interest as compared to $500,000. So it's not a good deal for anybody. It's something that might be tempting to somebody who doesn't really understand what they're getting into financially. But generally speaking, shorter term mortgages are better for the consumer because they involve paying off the interest quicker, building up your equity quicker. So I don't think the 50-year mortgages idea is going to go anywhere because I don't think there was really any thought given to it before it was suggested. Now, the other idea in terms of a mobile mortgage or, I don't know the details of it. I actually didn't realize that it was the way you described it, something you could bring to, from one house to another house. And
That's the way it was presented. Right?
Yeah, because I thought it was just like consumable mortgage, which it used to be like out there where if somebody's buying your house, they can take over your mortgage.
Right. So this, you carry that number with you.
Yeah.
Going to this plan.
I don't know much about it, and I don't even know the details of the proposal, but if that's what it is, that sounds.
I heard about it. So
Sounds like a good idea.
the end of last week, I heard about it, and somebody asked me about it. It was DC a couple days ago, and I said, yeah, we could discuss it. We have no effect on any of those, but we certainly can discuss it because we are a financial board. And it's kind of nice that people are watching so that they can ask questions like that.
Yeah, I mean,
And I appreciate everybody's watching, ask questions. That's what we're here for. You know, we can't affect anything, but we certainly, well, on a national scale, we can. But we can certainly give you what our opinions are. I don't know. I don't, Gary. I think the 50-year mortgage idea was kicked out supposedly to help people under 25. We'll see what happens with it. I've heard pro and con, more con than pro. But the mobile mortgage just seems to be that's got some pretty good. I know the banks don't like it. But to me, I mean, if you get a good rate, you can take it with you. I think that's going to help that's going to help the average person, and that's who needs the help. I think we all agree on that. It's the average guy that needs the help with mortgages and finances and interest rates. It isn't super wealthy. Interesting. We'll see what happens with both of those situations. But I think Gary's right about 50. Yeah, that's self. I would think. Okay. Does anybody else have any old business for the board? No old that we discussed. Okay. Anybody have anything new? Just did new things. Anything else new? Okay. And we're going to be meeting January 15th. Next time with the bank, and then the bank date we'll pick right after town meeting, March, and we'll have a work session election. And we'll go from there. Well, if there's nothing else, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained? Passed, and we're at 10:12. And going to shut off the computer. Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen. You did a great job as always. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You as well. Thank you as well.
Appreciate it. And we'll take the batteries out of our